Okay, here we go. So I'm 28 years old, which basically, according to all the studies that I'm finding, means that I'm the age that I'm probably going to stop listening to new music. See, the studies that I found show that by the time that people get about my age, they cease listening to essentially any new music. And if they choose to listen to music, they only listen to music that they listen to most likely during their high school period. Frankly, that's kind of scary to me. My whole life, music has been something I've been really passionate about. And of course, the statistic isn't 100% of people, but stereotypes exist for a reason. And the study shows that the majority of people do this. Now, I've loved music pretty much my whole life. When I was a teenager, it was a staple that when I was shy and I didn't know how to talk to people, one of the ways that I would start a conversation and get to know somebody better was I would ask them what types of music they listened to. I listened to a decent amount of music as a kid, so a lot of times when somebody talked about the music they liked, I could at least associate some qualities or maybe know something about what the person might be into, or maybe able to relate to the person in some way if it's the type of music that I also liked. And it took until I was in my mid 20s to realize that that's no longer a good conversation starter, because once people left high school, they stopped knowing what type of music they listened to. They stopped actively listening to music. Now, based on what I've read, when you're growing up and you're a teenager and your hormones are going crazy and your emotions are all over the place and you're trying to figure out who you are as a person, you're trying to figure out your own interests as a person, you're trying to figure out the type of person that you're going to be, the person that you want to be. A lot of times people are more into music in high school. They're listening to new things. A lot of times negatively they identify themselves too much with a type of music or a scene or a band or something. But teenagers are so in tune with their emotions and the fact that they don't understand fully what they're going through that listening to music, at least for me and many of my friends, finding a song that connected with you emotionally was a way that you could kind of help understand the emotions that you were going through better. Music has a really powerful method of kind of bypassing the intellect. Not that it doesn't hit the intellect, because of course there's a lot of good lyrics and music can be something that you can analyze with your brain, but music itself has a way of subverting the intellect and hitting the emotions, while the lyrics can allow your mind to also think about things as well. And it really is this powerful resonant feeling that can give you comfort or help you understand what you're feeling better, or feel happy, or sometimes feel angry, sometimes feel sad. Like, it's not just positive emotions, there's negative emotions that you can feel from music that kind of feel therapeutic when you're able to go through this stuff. I felt like when I was a teenager, everyone that I was interacting with kind of knew how to do this. Everyone did it. Everyone listened to music when I was a teenager. Now that I'm an adult, nobody listens to music. At first, I want to start off like there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It was really weird to me when I kind of went through that transition, and I kind of like was super judgy and kind of a jerk about it. But like I realize now that like people are interested in what they're interested in. But I, if you were someone that really liked music when you were younger, and you just kind of don't know what happened, I want to kind of talk to you, because I also might be talking to myself in a couple years. Like I said, the statistics say what they say, and I can't change that. So maybe this is something I can watch myself in a couple years and see what has changed about myself. Most of the time, what happens to people as they get older is they choose to stop listening to anything new and they only listen to the music there was in high school. A very common sentiment from older people is, "Oh, nothing good has come out since X years when I was a teenager." And this is usually a sign of one of two things. One, the person just legitimately has closed off the idea of new music, or two, they haven't actually sought out new music to see what they might be into now. Now, in the age of music streaming, I feel like that second one is a lot harder to kind of just let slide, because the truth of the matter is that it's easier than ever to kind of find new music, and most music services that exist these days specifically exist to try to cater to your tastes. So if you like a specific type of music, it's really easy to get a music service and tell it what you like, and it will basically constantly feed you the things that you like. Pandora is excellent at it to some degree. Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, I'm sure Amazon too. All of the major services have these type of things. That's specifically what the algorithms are designed to do, which is to find your taste and then force feed it to you. But that aside, there's also some people that liked music a lot growing up, and they've decided that they don't really care about listening to music at all. They've just kind of closed themselves off, whether willingly or unwillingly. That's the part where it's hard to know why that happens. Sometimes you just get other interests. I've read studies that say basically every 10 years you're a very different person than who you were before, so maybe you just don't like music anymore. Maybe you got super busy with kids and you're constantly just listening to kids' music, so sometimes it's nice to just have silence. Sometimes you pick up a new hobby or you get into a TV show or some other thing, and there's lots of different reasons for you to stop listening to new music. And like I said, I'm not here to judge. It's just something that is weird for me to think about as someone who is still in the phase of life where I'm still avidly into the idea of listening to new music and kind of embracing that stuff. Now, on the completely other side of the spectrum, something that's really common when you're young, and this is something that I had, and this is something that's super prevalent in the year 2019 that we now live in, is nothing is permanent or even semi-permanent or even really what is less permanent than transient. Because basically the idea on the internet now is if a song is like 24 hours old, it stops existing. We have instances where a song can stick around for, I don't know, months. You have Drake, Taylor Swift. Right now you have Old Town Road by Lil Nas X. Like, you have some songs that have some staying power, but for the most part, things come and they go so fast. And this is due to streaming. This is due to the consumer culture that we have now. Things are so transient that it's easy to look at something old and say, screw it, I don't have time for that. It's easy to look at a list of new releases and say, here's all the hot things that are happening right now. I don't have time to listen to anything old. I don't have time to remember anything that I used to like. I don't have time to do any of this stuff. And maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I think that that's also kind of like a little bit hard for me to understand as well. As someone that still likes to listen to new music, I think that sometimes young people or people today have a tendency to throw out everything as soon as it's out of the zeitgeist and completely forget about it just to embrace the new stuff. And I think that that can be problematic. In 2013, Daft Punk released an album called Random Access Memories, which kind of addressed the fact that with all of the technological advancements that we've had in music, specifically with electronic music coming into the forefront, us using more digital types of music, which is crazy because Daft Punk was kind of at huge parts of that revolution early on. With all of that, we've kind of lost a lot of the musical history that we had leading up to this point. Depending on what week it is, you can listen to the new releases, and it just completely throws out so much of musical history that it almost feels like a waste. Like we've come through this journey of music and different musical sounds, different musical styles. It seems a shame to throw them out just because they sound slightly older than the new stuff. Now, maybe that's because I'm old now. Maybe that's because I am turning into the old person. But I really don't feel like we have to go to either of these extremes. We could embrace both of them. Random Access Memories was basically a call to remember the sounds and the music from our past and not forget it. And obviously, as I said, I'm not against new music. The thing is that for someone like me, who's still into music at least where I am right now at 28, music has had a significant impact on me throughout my entire life. Different songs, different albums came to me at different times and affected me differently at different times. That when I listen to music that's older, I get memories of feelings and places. And it's almost like when you smell something and that's connected to your memory. My brain does that with music. So it's really important for me not to just completely throw out everything that I've listened to throughout my entire life. And remember the stuff that I've listened to throughout the years and kind of compare to like how my tastes have changed as I've grown and I've matured as a person. How have my musical tastes grown and matured? Where are they continuing to go? Make sure that you continue to foster that sense of excitement when you're exploring new musical things. Sometimes I get just super into this mindset of like, there's so much new music coming out, I have to find out what's out. In 2016, I made and I knew this was a challenge that I couldn't actually fulfill. I was just trying to see how far I could go, where I said, I am going to try to make a list of every single album that came out in 2016, I did this early on, and I am going to try to listen to every single album that's released. Now, obviously, we know that's impossible. As far as I know, there's not even a good list. I'm convinced that for 2016, my list was more comprehensive than any other list I found on the internet. I was gathering from so many different sources and compiling it together into one place, and I was trying to listen to at least once every single album on my list. And I made it all the way through February, which is not very far, but it was so many albums. And then I ended up listening to one album a day at least for the rest of the year. So I ended up with over 365 albums listened to by the end of the year, I think is what it came to. But I listened to so much new music. And that really gave me an exposure and a taste for genres that I didn't know existed, genres that I didn't know I might like, genres that I liked that I realized weren't as inventive as I thought they were. It gave me kind of connections between genres, and knowing what I did know about older music, I could see lines of influence, which I always love to watch lines of influence in music throughout history. But I was listening to so much new music that I essentially forgot to listen to anything that I'd really listened to a lot previously. And I missed it, because what happens is it's not good to always forget where you've come from and the things that you've learned along the way, which these are the things that I tie to a lot of my musical memories. So it was at these points that I created some different musical playlist historical timelines for myself. I made one called Ultimate Life Playlist for like the first half of my life, and then I made one called Ultimate Life Playlist for the second half of my life. And then I made a playlist called The Well-Lit Room, which growing up I almost exclusively listened to either Christian contemporary music or music around the Christian contemporary scenes. And the Well-Lit Room playlist, the name comes from a video game that came out. Honestly, I don't remember what year, but it was called Alan Wake. It's an incredibly underrated video game, one of my favorite video games. But in the video game, there's a lot of metaphors that are become physical dangers. So there's a lot of darkness in the game, and the darkness is evil, and the darkness is physically manifested as evil. And so one of the ways that they there's something very important that they have to protect, and so there is a person that is essentially tasked with keeping a very specific artifact safe, and they keep it in the well-lit room, which is this room that's in a security bunker, and there are lights strewn all about, and all of the lights have to be meticulously maintained to keep all of the darkness out, because this artifact is important, and it's important that the darkness can't get to it, so they keep the lights lit. And that idea of a safe zone, kind of an escape place, that's what I had in mind with this well-lit room playlist that I created. Recently, I decided to readdress that idea, and I created a playlist called The Well-Lit Room 2, which was just a more comprehensive version of the same thing, kind of this music that I had associated with myself growing up. And it kind of reminded me of the newest single that I know of that wasn't from the Bluegrass album that Stephen Curtis Chapman put out recently. It's called Remember to Remember. And kind of the focus of that single is the idea of remembering the things that God has taught you through the years. And it's really easy as we move on through different stages of life to completely forget the lessons that we may have learned in the past, completely forget the things that we may have learned, the ways that God has helped us get through things, the things that we screwed up and completely just borked completely. Good things and bad things, it's easy to just forget that stuff and constantly be moving forward. And there's some benefit to always constantly be moving forward and not dwelling in the past. But it's also important to remember the lessons that we've learned and continue to learn them. I say this both as something when we're talking about our life lessons that we've learned, but also musically, just the ways that our musical taste has evolved over the years. So I think it's important. Even as I get older, I'm not saying don't listen to things that were formative to you when you were young. I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong with having a special connection to the music that you had when you're young. But if you were able to have that special connection with music when you were young, there's a definite possibility that if you really try, if that's something that you're really interested in, you could continue to do that with new music. You're at a new stage in life. You have different things about you. You're probably a very different person than when you were a teenager. I would assume so, and I would hope so, honestly. You're a different place. You probably have different relationships, different feelings, different struggles, different successes. I challenge you that if you are the type of person that was really into music when you were younger, and you're in the same boat as me, where you've reached the age where just statistically you're probably going to stop caring about music, to maybe give it another shot. Like I said, I can't judge you if you just decide that you don't like it. That's okay. We have different interests. But if that was something that you cared about, and there were reasons that you associated with music and the love of music, that's something that you could continue to foster. It may not come as easily as when you were a teenager, but you can continue to foster that love of music. I will say that at my specific state where I am in my life, that's a harder thing to do than when I was younger. I got kids, they have their preferences, they have their needs. I have a wife who has her needs that I need to help. I have hobbies, I have a job. Like, there are other things that I can do that get in the way of me cultivating my musical development the way that I used to actively do essentially all of the time. But it's something that you can do. You still have feelings and thoughts and all of these things. And if you have cultivated that love of music before, you can still do it. There's nothing saying you cannot do it. So if that's something that you have interest in, I urge you to keep trying. There's so much new music happening all the time. There's almost certainly something that you can associate or identify with. I could go off on another completely other tangent about how most of the times that music or genres especially that you may think that you may only hate because you don't fully understand the language to which they're speaking to the emotions. Like, a lot of times you'll hear a song and it's something like you've never heard it before, and so you immediately reject it because you're like, oh, that doesn't sound good. Sometimes if you give it a chance and you give it multiple listens, you may end up hating it. But there's also the possibility that you start to understand the message both lyrically and musically that album is pushing forward, and you can actually expand your musical taste. I've done it myself so much. When I was a teenager, I very much liked a specific type of music, and I very much hated a lot of types of music. Some of it was just because, like, oh, I was born in the 90s. I hated 80s music because my parents loved 80s music, and I thought it sounded corny as all get out. And sometimes I still do, but you learn to appreciate those things if you give them a chance and you learn the language of the genres or decades that you were previously not kind of exposed to, and you don't fully understand as easily as some of the ones that you may have heard growing up when you were a teenager, and you were more willing to invite some of that stuff. I could probably make a whole video about like how I think that genres are like languages in music, but I think that's a completely other tangent. But yeah, I say all of that loop roundabout to kind of get to this point where I've already said it, I'm 28 years old. In the next 5 years, I could lose my passion and my love for music. There's definitely a possibility. I don't see it happening, but did everyone see it happening when they were 17 years old? I don't know. I hope that if I do somehow start to lose some of my passion or my gumption, I might see this video and be reminded of the ways that I connected to music in the past and the ways that I can continue to do that moving forward. And I hope that if you were in the same boat as I might be then, or you're in the same boat as a lot of people where you listen to music and it was really important to you at one point in your life and you kind of don't know why it fell off, but you'd like to try to cultivate that again, I really encourage you to try to do it. It's so rewarding, personally. I feel like it increases our ability to relate to each other and understand each other when we kind of are able to figure out each other's emotional levels. Like I said before, sometimes music can help you understand your own emotions better. I just feel like that's something that can be helpful to people. Plus, as I said, I just freaking love music. I'm no musical expert by any means. No one can say that I'm a musical expert. But what I can say is music has affected me, and I hope it continues to affect me for many years to come. I hope I can continue to cultivate this passion that I have for music, and I would love it if you could too, especially if it's something that you've had trail off. I would love for you to reawaken that passion that you had for music once and be able to continue to cultivate it and grow it. Maybe not as much as before, maybe more than before. If you stuck through this video and you watched it all the way from beginning to end, that's awesome. I don't really know where it went. I feel like it was all over the place. We'll see when I edit it. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video and this is something that you liked, or you want to see more of these kind of random rants that I have without a super specific album subject or something, go ahead and give us a thumbs up or a comment below and let us know what you thought. Maybe you can let me know, like, is this something that speaks to you? Did you used to listen to music but you don't have the passion anymore? Do you care? Like, does that bother you? Would you like to cultivate an interest in music? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to see more stuff like this, or you want to see the other videos that we put out videos on music and lots of other topics. Hit that subscribe button, and you can get notifications if you hit the bell button as well. You'll get notifications when we post a new video. We've been posting videos pretty much daily, and they range in lots of different subjects, from, like I said, music, comic books, television shows. We're hoping to get some gaming content, stuff like that. These are just hobbies that we're really passionate about. So if you want to see more content like that, please hit the subscribe button. You can hit the bell button. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, if this is something that you even have ever thought about before. But I guess there's always the possibility that maybe I just overthought everything and no one else cares. I guess I'll find out when we post the video. If you're still here, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.